All right. Thanksgiving is an interesting word. John, as you mentioned, our country has kind of not thought about Thanksgiving as far as having an antecedent. How many of you like to watch football games on Thanksgiving? Okay, yeah, all right. I think the Bears are playing the Lions, and I won't be praying that am I right on that? Okay, I should have worn my Bears shirt, but again, as I mentioned in Sunday school, if the Bears somehow pull off a victory, I'm wearing my Peyton shirt next Sunday, just so you know. And then and Dale, of course, would say I can wear something over it, like a sweater. No, not with my Peyton shirt. No. All right, so what happens is, okay, John Madden. Okay, remember when Madden was doing this? What did Madden do every Thanksgiving? They made a big deal out of it. Remember he had the turducken? Okay, or a turkey with like 10 legs, so there were legs to share. And that became the whole theme. But what we have done as a society is we have forgotten who we're thankful to. I mean, it's when it says it like in school, yes, the Pilgrims, they gave thanks. To who? Imagine the sheer silliness of my going and just standing out in the field going, thank you. Thank you. And not having anyone particular that I'm thanking. Thankfulness must have an antecedent. Here's a great word. It must have something that it's referring to, someone that it's referring to. Going back last Sunday to the guy with the two sons. The younger son was completely ungrateful for his father and his father's love. Because remember, what did the son say to his father? Basically, hey, Dad, you're not dead yet? Oh, man, what a bummer. Can I have my stuff anyway? Treated his dad like he was dead. I mean, what complete, total ingratitude. Now, the younger son figured it out as his home is now with the pigs. Can you imagine that he could possibly have any ingratitude once he came back to his father? He came back penitent, and he came back incredibly like, Dad, and the dad doesn't even want to listen. My son's home, this is great. And he restores him and honors him like he's a son. I can't imagine the son ever being ungrateful like that again. Now, the older son, however, did not show gratitude. Look at what the older son had. He had his father's entire estate. He had everything. And yet, what does he say when his dad wants to welcome his brother home? Dad, you don't get it. You haven't been fair to me. Dad, what's your problem? I don't even get a calf to celebrate with my friends, and or a young goat to celebrate with my friends, and he gets the calf? What's the matter with you, Dad? And the son, this older son, he owned everything. It was his calf. Are you sad? There we go. Okay, good. All right. Yeah. If I look at you, make sure you look sad. Maybe a little. Okay, just right there. All right. The older son had no idea of gratitude at all. There must always be an antecedent to the giving of thanks. When the pilgrims gave thanks, it needs to say they gave thanks to God. Okay? Not that they just gave thanks into the atmosphere. Psalm 136. I want to go through this with you, so you don't need to turn there, because I have all my little markers in my Bible today. So please, as a matter of fact, don't turn there. I'm sorry, 136. Yeah, 136. I can't even read what I put on the screen. So your job is after I read something, you will say loudly, His love endures forever. Okay, practice. His love endures forever. Okay, you might get better at it. That's okay, though. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good.
His love endures forever.
Give thanks to the God of gods.
His love endures forever.
Give thanks to the Lord of lords.
His love endures forever.
Okay, you can start getting louder, though. That's okay. We're not really a shouting church, are we? No. Okay. To Him alone who does great wonders.
His love endures forever.
Who spread out the earth upon the waters.
His love endures forever.
Who made the great lights.
His love endures forever.
The sun to govern the day.
His love endures forever.
The moon and the stars to govern the night.
His love endures forever.
To him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt
His love endures forever.
and brought Israel out from among them
His love endures forever.
with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm.
His love endures forever.
You're getting softer. To him who divided the Red Sea asunder
His love endures forever.
and brought Israel out through the midst of it.
His love endures forever.
So the psalm continues on like this. And it was a choral thing. And I imagine an antiphonal group in the back where the group in the front would sing, I have to make up the melody, but Sihon, king of the Amorites, and his love endures forever, loudly, to remind us that the love of God endures forever. Okay? So, Luke chapter 17. Miriam, do you feel a bit awkward? Oh, good. That's how I want you to feel. I'm going to owe Miriam, like, I don't know, some kind of, maybe, you like Subway? Yeah, but I'm going to owe you. Okay, all right. So, Luke chapter 17. Now, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. Now, if you were a leper, anybody who came near you, I'm a leper, stay away. And this was your life. And they would put the lepers in the leper colony because that way, they were all lepers. They didn't have to yell to each other to stay away. But unclean, I'm unclean. And people would shun them because, if you buy somebody who's got leprosy, it might jump at you. That's what they thought anyway. So as he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy approached him. They stood at a distance and called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. When he saw them, he said, go show yourselves to the priests. Now, if you thought you had been cured of leprosy, you would go to the priest, and the priest would say whether you were healed or not. And that would determine the rest of your life. So that's why he said, go to the priest. Go show yourself to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Can you imagine how cool that would? You've got leprosy, you've got these sores. Leprosy was a name given to a large group of various gross skin diseases. Okay, it could have been severe psoriasis, eczema, one of those diseases that just really kind of makes you look gross. So as they're going, can you imagine, you're walking, toward the priest, and you notice every step you take, wait a minute, my leprosy is disappearing. And after maybe 10 or 15 or 20 steps, it's gone. That's what happened to them. One of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Now wait. Samaritans and Jews, they don't like each other. They hate each other. He was a Samaritan. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner, this Samaritan, who's not even, quote, one of us? Then he said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. He expressed gratitude. The other 9 did not come back to express gratitude. Horrible, horrible thing. Now, if there is not a God who is in control in all events. This does not mean that God controls everything. Again, if I take this little bottle cap and I drop it, I do not believe that God controlled that. But see, that's why it fell on the floor. Now, I do not believe that God foreordained that event from the beginning of time. That just occurred. However, in all the chaos that goes on in the world around us, we know that God is sovereign. Okay? Because you ever notice that evil usually crushes itself? It destroys itself and usually doesn't win. So if you don't have God, all you have is fortune and luck. And good luck, which is really a meaningless term. I guess that would simply mean, I hope things turn out the way you would like them to turn out. But there's no God in this. There's no thankfulness in this. Henley, that poem Invictus, and he did not name the poem, by the way. Somebody else came and named it later. Out of the black night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. And Henley goes, yeah, good, Gene. Just say, no. It's like, what is that? Whatever gods may be. Is he thanking any gods at all for my unconquerable soul? He's making a god of himself. And as you go through this poem, it's only about maybe, I think, 12 or 16 lines. He's deifying himself in this. So is he actually thankful to any gods that may be? No. He's saying, I am tough. I will not be put down. He had a leg amputated in life, and I imagine he was a very bitter man. Had a lot of adversity, but yet he could shake his fist and say, I will not be defeated by anyone or anything. I have an unconquerable soul. Well, he died like everybody else dies. Now, Lincoln, in the midst of a terrible war, terrible, this was awful. Can you imagine if you were in either the military from the South or the North and you received a minor wound? That could kill you. Let's say, for example, you get grazed by a musket ball, and draws a little blood. You could die so easily from that. Or they might just amputate your arm. And you could die from the amputation of the arm. They didn't have the antibiotics and stuff that we have today. What a terrible war. It just drew upon Lincoln, drew upon his mind. He hated it. But yet Lincoln writes, the year that is drawing toward its close has been filled with the blessings of fruitful fields and healthful skies. These bounties which are so consistently enjoyed that we are prone to forget the source from which they come, others have been added, which are of so extraordinary a nature that they cannot fail to penetrate and even soften the heart which is habitually insensible to the ever-watching providence of Almighty God. We are prone to forget the source from which they came. We get jaded, okay? Jaded means that you are, two things can jade you. One can be it's so hard. One can be it's so good you forget. Again, Thanksgiving. You eat so much food. You eat and you eat and you eat. And you're just sitting there going, oh, that was so good. You're jaded because of the greatness of the food. Especially my grandma's sweet potatoes. They were the best. If we look in Romans chapter 1, we see what happens when a people are not thankful. It starts like this. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven. This does not mean, God's raining fireballs on us. It means, that's God's central location is in heaven, so the judgment is coming from there. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. Yesterday morning, it was so cool. I'm looking out my kitchen window, and there's these pine trees. And they're not like the thick Douglas fir kind. They're the kind with the more spindly branches and stuff. And I'm watching those things. It's so cool. And the breeze is just strong enough to make them be moving almost like they're clapping their hands. And I thought, all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Thinking, that's what David saw. It was so cool. And I look at nature. I look at the world around me. How does this work? How can people possibly say this works without a great God in heaven who has given us blessing upon blessing upon blessing? I got to talk, this was so cool. I talked to Wyatt a little bit at the Bible study. And, I actually called up a microscopic structure of the kidney called the loop of Henle. And it's like, this is so cool to praise God for, how this little microscopic structure works. And without it, you die. God is so great. And so when I look at biology, I've had some discussions with a biologist lately who's a school teacher, and he just doesn't see this. It's so frustrating. Look at what you've studied. Look at what you know. How can you not give glory to God for this? But God made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what was made, so that people are without excuse. I don't see how anybody can look at the replication of DNA or the assemblage of protein molecules and how the mRNA, messenger RNA, if I'm wrong, if I'm wrong on this, you can correct me later. But the messenger RNA, all these things work together to build proteins, and the proteins are then assembled. Remember the name of the structure that assembles the proteins, folds them up? Yeah, the ribosomes. Yes. Yeah, you said ribosomes, right? Okay, see, she's right because she's smart. But you're very sad, though. Okay, all right. Smiling is allowed. Okay. This will have a point, just so that you know. So they're without excuse. Now, When we do not give God his proper place, we have made a choice to deny clear reality. I mean, that's the only way that I can look at this. It's clear reality. These things cannot have possibly come into being without a God who has designed them and brought them to life and continues to keep them going. It is not possible. And I've done some studies that show statistically it is ludicrously impossible beyond the wildest imagination. It cannot have happened without a kind and benevolent God building this stuff. If we don't give God his proper place, we're in trouble. Now, examples, Genesis 1-3. Remember Adam and Eve? What was the temptation? It wasn't so much to eat the apple, but it was the temptation to, hey, you know what? You can be like God. Just take a bite of that apple. You'll be like God. You'll be just like him. Gratitude would say, how can I be like God? No, I worship God. I don't defy him. John chapter 1, he came into his own people did not receive him. Psalm 136, we've gone over that. All the great things that God has done. His love endures forever. Revelation chapter 20, earth and sky flee from his presence. It's a pretty important, powerful place. Romans chapter 11 talks about a psalm of praise to God for who he is. And it says, this is God. He's really hard to figure out. As a matter of fact, we can't. Can you imagine trying to figure out all of a Mary? What's your hardest class? Okay, all right. Okay, can you imagine if I take the organic chemistry book and I cut out one word, and then I give Miriam the word, and then say, okay, Miriam, I'm going to give you a test on organic chemistry based upon this one word. Exactly. Yeah, Mary's like, no. Now she's really crying. Okay. But that's what we do when we try to figure out God. God is infinite, and we have these fragments by which we can understand something about him. But it's like, it's far more than taking one word and then out of an organic chemistry book and trying to understand all of organic chemistry through that one word. It just simply does not work. Philippians chapter 2 says, every knee shall bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. That's a pretty important place. Back to Romans chapter 1. For although they knew God, this is the idea, knew about him, they were acquainted with him, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him. But their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings, or like a mortal human being or beings, and birds and animals and reptiles. It's so dumb. When we do not give God his proper place, we lose the ability to think right. The idea is that our thinking is foolish. It's just empty. Have you ever met somebody who's an empty head and they don't know it? They just babble on and on and on and on. No, I'm not thinking politicians, just so you know. There can be no common core of conduct or thinking. So if I deny God, how do I know that my manner of thinking is at all correct? I can't. I'm just on my own. I mean, to me, it's great. Remember, as children, we would make excuses to our parents. Why didn't you do the dishes? And we think of these wonderful, empty-headed reasons that are just worthless, meaningless. There's no common core of conduct or thinking by which we can determine what's right or wrong. Judges chapter 10, verses 10 or 2, verses 10 to 15, talks about the idea of once the elders died off, kind of much all the people forgot about God, and they went and they worshiped dumb, foolish, idiotic things. Okay, there's like Dagon, the fish god. Okay, I'm going to worship a fish? That just makes no sense to me at all. You catch fish, and what do you do with them? Eat them. Yeah, I'm going to worship this fish that I've totally dominated. It makes no sense at all. By the time you get to 17, verse 6, and chapter 21, verse 25, it says the people basically thought, I'm going to do whatever I want. Everybody did what was right in their own mind. And when we do this, we end up with narcissism. We focus on ourselves because, well, why not? Why shouldn't I focus on me and how I'm feeling at this particular moment? Existentialism. There is no God, so try to make your own meaning. Narcissism. The narcissists have got this figured out. Without God, you cannot have meaning. It's impossible. You cannot have purpose. The existentialist, they would say there is no God, but we're going to try to make our own meaning. Narcissists say give up on it. It's not even possible. When we do not give God his proper place, we use the ability to think right. At the core of our being, we become as dumb as rocks. We fool ourselves into thinking that we're pretty smart. I know a lot of cool things. You don't know anything. We end up looking for a replacement for God, which is really never a successful or good idea at all. If you look in Jeremiah chapter 2, don't turn there, I'll just read you some sections. Verse 13, God says, my people have committed 2 sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. So people are looking for something to follow, something to worship, and so they reject God, and so they make up their own pathetic narratives of the way they think life should be. As you continue in chapter 1, you find that we lower ourselves to the level of animals. We give ourselves over to death. And then, at the end, we commend each other on how wonderful we have become. We become our own gods. Moral peer review. I always love reading when someone comes up with some view. It's usually science or in regard to something of that which denies God. And people will say, yes, but this has been approved by the peer review process. You know what the peer review process is? It's a bunch of people who agree with each other deciding that they're going to agree about something. That's all the peer review is. It's just silly. But people think that they're so wise because they surround themselves with people who agree with them, so therefore their point is good. 1 Chronicles 16, 34 and 41. The people are taught this refrain. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. Endures forever. The trumpeters and the musicians joined in unison to give praise and thanks to God, accompanied by trumpets, cymbals, and other instruments. This means it was loud. Probably a lot of anybody play trombone? Trombone players are so loud they can be annoying, especially if they're off pitch. They raised their voices in praise to the Lord and sang, he is good. His love endures forever. Ezra chapter 3, verse 1, Nehemiah, these all say his love endures forever. Psalm 9 gives credit to God for who he is. Luke, if you've got a Bible and you want to turn to this section of Luke, please feel free to do that. Got that one down here? Yeah, no, this is where Miriam gets involved. Okay. Miriam, thank you for being so kind and patient. All right. Yeah, keep looking sad. You can get a tissue out. I should have given you some water you could pour on your face. All right. That would not have been a good idea. So starting at verse 36 in Luke chapter 7. Now we're 17. What am I doing? I corrected that typo on one of the versions of this. It's Luke 17. Yeah, I say, what am I doing? And everybody goes, we don't know. Okay, well, there we go. All right, so here's the layout. Okay. Jesus is invited to a banquet of a Pharisee named Simon. Now, recall that when they had banquets, they would have a table and that everybody would be reclining, or they'd be like laying down with their feet kicking out. They'd be like leaning on one elbow, eating. Okay. If you're right-handed, you lean on your left elbow, left-handed. You lean on your right elbow and you conflict with the person next to you as you're grabbing for the grapes. The whole thing. That's what they were doing. Now, Miriam, I'm going to borrow you for a moment. If you could just do me a favor and just stand right here. Okay. Now, I want you to imagine that, okay, here is this woman, and she's standing here, and Jesus is right here, and the table's here, and reclining. So they were in the Pharisees' home, probably not a whole lot of room. Now, when they had banquets like this, it was customary for allowing spectators. So people could come in and watch the banquet, but not partake. Okay, so here is this woman, and she's at the feet of Jesus, and she's crying. She's bawling her eyes out. Oh, they didn't have Kleenex back there, right? Okay. Yep, here, give me that one. Ew, okay. Hopefully it's, okay, they didn't even have these. So she's just there crying. She's weeping at Jesus' feet. She realizes that her tears are flowing on Jesus' feet, so it's really cramped quarters. And so she sees this. You don't have to do this part, okay? But you can if you'd like to. So she kneels down and she wipes Jesus' feet because they're wet from her tears with her hair. You didn't do that in that culture. Woman lets down her hair. Oh, it's a bad, terrible thing. And then she takes some ointment that she had, it was very expensive, and she anoints his feet with the ointment. Okay, this is amazing. Now here's Simon the Pharisee. Yeah, thinking to himself, if Jesus were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman this is, that she's a sinner. She's just really bad. So Jesus, knowing his thoughts, says, Simon, let me tell you a story. I might be mixing up two things. That's why I like to have the text. Did anybody find the right text? Oh, it's chapter 7? You mean I was right and didn't know it? Wow. See, I'm ignorant. Oh, this is the bottom of the page. All right. So eating at the Pharisee's house. So the Pharisee who had invited him saw this. He said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him. This is really gross. She's not just there, but she's touching Jesus' feet. This is, the Pharisee thought this was disgusting. Jesus answered him, Simon, I have something to tell you. Tell me, teacher, he said, as if Jesus could teach him anything. 2 men owed money to a certain moneylender. Would anybody like to be a Pharisee? Mike, come on. Can you come be a Pharisee for me? All right. Okay. I'll make Mike the other victim. Okay, this is the Pharisee's chair, the chair of the Pharisee, which is a little bit cleaner and purer than the other chairs that we have. Okay, and actually he would not be sitting in a chair, but this is our culture. Yeah, yes, Mike, you can. Okay, you're just a Pharisee, man. It's like. Okay, so Jesus says 2 men owed money to a certain moneylender. One owed him 500 denarii. Denarii is like a year's wages, and the other 50. Neither of them had the money to pay him back, so he canceled the debts of both of them. Now, Simon, which of them would love him more? Simon replied,
I suppose the one who had the bigger debt canceled.
So then Jesus continues. He turned toward the woman, and then he says to Simon, Simon, do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, which was an insult not to do this. But also you're walking in an agrarian culture and you're tracking things in the house, which is not good. His wife must have been very angry with him. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss. It's like the customary smoochy thing on the cheeks. Okay, I'm glad you didn't give me a kiss in our culture. It's good. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I entered has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head. It was a good thing to do in the culture, okay? You put oil on my head, I'm going home to wash my hair. But in the culture, it was a good thing. You did not put oil on my head, but she poured perfume on my feet. Therefore I tell you, her many sins are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who loves little, loves little. Or he who has been forgiven little, loves little. Now, what he's doing here with Simon the Pharisee, he's insulting him because this woman is forgiven. What about Simon? Forgiven woman. You can go back to your seat rejoicing. Says, oh, good, I'm rejoicing. I get to sit down. Okay, real quick. Okay, Miriam, did you feel awkward? Okay, a little. Okay, imagine how this woman would have felt because when she walks in and she's there, everybody's looking at her because everybody knows what she's like. And just how humiliated she must have felt. But yet she stands there, okay, wiping the feet of Jesus. Okay, give Marion a little round of applause. Marion. I did not warn her that was coming. Simon, don't you move. It's your house. You shouldn't have to. Okay, so your sins are forgiven. The other guests began to say among themselves, who is this who even forgives sins? Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Now go in place. And Simon sits there in his sin. Oh, you better go sit down now. Because you're obviously unclean. Get away from me. Okay, and so, but that's the idea that, okay, we are so thankful for what God has done in forgiving us because all of us are in the place of the woman. We're all sinners. The moment that I think that I'm righteous, I'm in deep water. Because then I think, I don't need God. I've got me because I'm great and I'm wonderful. Now, what has Christ done for us? And for this we give infinite and eternal, well, we can't give infinite thanks. We can give eternal thanks. The cross, his enduring love for us is proven on the cross. Therefore, we must say his love endures forever. Praise is a form of giving thanks because it attributes credit and honor. He is worthy of our praising, and that's a form of giving thanks. He is worthy of this 24/7. We must live worshipfully. Now, how do we live worshipfully? Well, go to Ephesians chapter 4. Forget Colossians chapter 3. That's a great text as well. Imagine saying there's a biblical text that's not great. Go to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1. As a prisoner for the Lord, Paul was in prison, I urge you to live a life, peripateo, our normal daily grind stuff, to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. How do you honor the Lord? How do you give thanks? You give thanks by being changed, by being completely humble and gentle, by being patient, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. This is what we do. This is how we give thanks to God. We live the life that he has given to us, and we give him credit all the time. All the time. And so we give thanks to the Lord, our God and King, because his love endures forever. Okay, for he is good. He is above all things. His love endures forever. So we need to be living a life of praise. Bob, could you pass those papers out now? Thank you. And maybe, Mike, if you could just give a hand, that would be great. Thank you. Yeah, just pass those out. Yeah, Bob, give Mike some extra ones, and we can get them passed out more efficiently. So your homework is this. You're being given a piece of paper on which you are to record your praises, things you are thankful for to God. Now, on my list of praises, I'm so thankful just for some of the people. I won't name them off at this point who he has brought into my life. And I can see the grace of God working in them, changing them, conforming them to the image of Christ. I'm so thankful for that. But then also, we need to understand that we have to be thankful for things that we don't necessarily like. But yet, we trust God that he is working all things together for the good of us, that he has called according to his purpose. So even things that you might not like, look back in retrospect. There have been some times in my life, if I could change things, I would, but then I would miss out where I am today. So I'm going to trust God and thank him even when things do not seem to be the way I want them to be. So to give thanks in all things. So this is part of your worshiping living, okay, this week. Keep those things and then reference them. You can put it in your Bible, you can put it in your wallet, your pocket, whatever it takes, but list those things. And then when you think, man, I'm just so down, wow, give thanks to the Lord. Look at the list. Go over it. Thank him for this. And then add things to the list.